Well, as you know by now, we've done literally thousands of videos of Right Angle and Bill Whittle now, and given that huge number, occasionally you're going to find something where you stumble on something kind of important. And that's what happened earlier today. Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Whittle here with Steve Green and Scott Ott, and this is your Right Angle about the protests against police brutality and how taking a knee at a sporting event is about the worst thing you could possibly do. Just earlier today, we record these on Tuesday. We recorded an episode of Bill Whittle Now where Scott presented me the case of Brittany Griner, who's a basketball player for the Phoenix Mercury in the WNBA, who says that she's not going to come out, not even going to be on the court for the national anthem, and is basically going to encourage her team to do the same. And this, of course, prompted a 7 or 8 minute response from me on why you should come out for the national anthem. And the fact that you're not required to come out for the national anthem is the reason you should come out for the national anthem, and so on. And big talk about how it's a chance for us to realize that politics is not the entire world, and gave great reasons for why anti-Americanism doesn't really work, and so on. And then Scott goes on to say, well, she also said, no, she loves America. Her father was a cop. No disrespect intended to the flag or the country. And that's when I realized this is something actually important. Steve, here's the problem. If you're Colin Kaepernick or other people, or somebody like Brittany, and you decide that as a sports figure, the most effective thing you can do to call attention to a cause you believe in is to take a knee or otherwise not appear for the national anthem, you may think that that is the most dramatic gesture you can make, but it instantly comes across as anti-America, anti-everything, and puts people in their trenches. And one of the things that we just talked about largely off camera after we were finished this morning is, who's in favor of police brutality? No one's in favor of police brutality. Black Lives Matter as an organization is an organization with an agenda, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people who are genuinely concerned about things that you and I as conservatives and libertarians would be concerned
Absolutely.
about. We don't like state using excessive force. We don't like the idea of police bashing down doors and shooting people in their homes. Turns out they had the wrong address. We certainly don't like police kneeling on the necks of somebody until they suffocate. There's nobody's in favor of that. But when the people who are protesting police brutality decide to do it by using either the national anthem or the flag or something like that, they are making enemies out of people who would otherwise be their friends. So my question for both of you guys is, if that premise makes sense to you, what would be an appropriate way of showing your protest basically your protest of police brutality or racial inequality and all the rest? Can you divorce that issue from the national anthem, which generates enormous counter-reaction from people like me and you who love this country and see nothing but anti-Americanism here?
Wow. There's a lot to unpack there. And I just forgot a name, and it's somebody I really like, so I have to look it up. Okay, I got it. Gary Sinise does so much great work. But he doesn't plug his charitable work and his political causes into movies or TV shows. He does it on his own time. I just found out, I think we might have done a segment on this in the last year or two, and I think I actually hosted the thing, but we do a lot of these. I get a little jumbled up in my tiny man brain here, that every year he takes a group of kids who've lost a parent in the military to Disney World, and he raises money for this, and the kids get a chartered jet and 3 days at Disney World and all the rest, and you get choked up just reading about this. And he's been quietly doing this for years. Well, if Gary Sinise wanted to get on a different cause, he would, I'm sure, do it in the exact same way, and it wouldn't alienate, a more political cause. It wouldn't alienate the vast majority of the public who just know him as Lieutenant Dan from that Tom Hanks movie from back in the 90s. And they keep that warm feeling. But what it really comes down to is, if you're a basketball player, a football player, baseball player, who really gives a flying flick at a rolling donut what you think about the issue of the day? I don't give a damn. Keep it to yourself when you're doing your job. There's so many examples of this. My new favorite restaurant's about 15 minutes away from here. It's called Beasts and Brews. They've got 100 different beers on tap, and you get it yourself. It's really fun. And they serve sort of elevated bar food. Some of the best hamburgers I've ever had. Some of the best chicken wings I've ever had have been this place, Beasts and Brews. And I'm in so often that I've gotten to know a little bit the head chef, Noah. Great guy, but I didn't ask him what color I should paint my office. And I just got my office painted a couple of months ago. By the way, I painted the back wall when we first started in here, and the rest of the place was just sheer white for the last 4 years. I finally decided to do something about it. Scott is the guy that my wife and I hired to do house painting. It's when we don't want to do it ourselves. And Scott's a good guy. He does such great work, but I don't ask him what I should order for dinner next time I go to Beasts and Brews. There's just, people have core competencies. And when it comes to football, I want to see a great game. Same thing with football and basketball. I just want to see a great game. I don't want a lecture served up with a halftime show or anything like that. Just do your damn job, and whatever cause it is you believe in. If you're a football player, dear God, you've got money. You've got celebrity. You don't have to ruin a professional sport for the rest of us just because your giant ass ego is so big that you got to trip on it every time the national anthem plays. I almost always am capable of resisting this, but in this case, I'm not. I've known Gary Sinise pretty well for 12, 13 years now. And he not only takes the Lieutenant Dan band out and does things for kids like this, but he takes Lieutenant Dan band out and plays at bases, I don't know how many days a year, but it's a significant number. And the thing that's important about that is he's not going to just the glamour places. He's not just playing in Iraq or Afghanistan. He's playing in the rain in Kansas at some Army base somewhere. He's an amazing guy. And to double the name drop potential. I recall many years ago when we were working for the previous company, I told him I was headed to Guantanamo Bay, voluntarily, as it turned out. And he said, when you get there, go into the officers club. When you get to the officers club, just look up at the ceiling. So I got a chance to fly to Guantanamo Bay, and I went to the officers club and I looked up on the ceiling. And sure enough, the ceiling of the officers club in Guantanamo Bay has got nothing but photographs of people who performed at Guantanamo Bay, and there's Gary Sinise up there like 2 or 3 times. Now that I got that out of my system, Scott, I get what Steve is saying. I do. But let's take it from Brittany's point of view, or from Colin Kaepernick's point of view, or whatever the case may be. You're a celebrity. You're on national television. You have the spotlight. The spotlight is on you. I've said before that Colin Kaepernick wants to protest. He should do it outside, out of uniform. And I'm standing by that. But certainly you can understand somebody who has the national spotlight on them and wanting to take advantage of that to spread a message that you think is important. What could people do to disassociate these issues? Because they have become virtually welded together now in the national consciousness that people who support Black Lives Matter are anti-Americans. They hate the flag. They think the country's a racist hellhole, all the rest of it. There is nobody that we know who is a decent person who's not against police brutality and so on. What could somebody in the spotlight do to divorce these two things, do you think?
This is part of my ongoing puzzlement about political life, so to speak, or about people who are attempting to persuade others to adhere to their beliefs. It seems like once we come to believe something strongly, anybody who doesn't show up fully molded in our image, believing everything we believe at the moment that we mention it to them, is anathema. And we need to rebuke them and throw them off and protest them and cause problems for them. And it just seems like there's so little effort at genuine persuasion in this country, and you don't have to look back very far in history to see someone like the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, who understood that political majorities are, well, political and majorities, and you need to build support for an idea. And so, as you point out, Bill, the idea of essentially causing a scandal for half the country at least, and probably more, by your actions when you're really trying to connect with people so that they'll agree with your view of life is just a self-defeating action. And I'm not saying that Brittany Griner's heart is not in the right place. And frankly, and to answer your original question, she's actually already doing one of those things that you can do that isn't as offensive. And that is, as some of her teammates have done, she has a name on her jersey of somebody who was killed in a police shooting. So that is, it's a relatively low-key way of doing that, but that is prominent when she's on the court or when she's being interviewed. And, if she's asked about it, she can give her opinion about that kind of stuff. And that, I would assume, would offend nobody but the person who designed the Phoenix Mercury jersey, who believes that the jersey is now kind of muddled up with other graphics. The idea is this. If you're trying to get across something like there is racial injustice in law enforcement, then your goal should be to bring aboard as many people as you can who see things the way you do. And you want other people to believe that this is their struggle too. It's not just your struggle and you want to smack them around about it. It's their struggle too. It's that idea when Martin Luther King quotes our founding documents and quotes Abraham Lincoln and basically says, we've written a check with these statements. We said things that have weight and meaning, and now it's time to cash that check. It's time to fulfill that obligation. You believe in that check, don't you? Let's cash that check. That's how you bring people on board. That's how you embrace people. That's how you build political majorities to get reforms done. And I know it's kind of the low-hanging fruit to do shock and awe and to think that if you scandalize people, that's enough. But I urge my brothers and sisters who care about this issue to not let it get bogged down in trivia and in ways that are driving people off, but instead look at it and say, what does somebody think who's not yet fully with us, and how can we draw them in?
Allow me just a few seconds to clear the decks for action here. Black Lives Matter as an organization is funded by George Soros, has a political agenda, and in the sense that since most black people are killed by other black people, is not serious about the actual problem, although there is, in fact, an actual problem. So let me get that out of the way. That said, the decision on the part of Colin Kaepernick to show his opposition to police brutality, whether you believe that case is real or not, his decision to do it by taking a knee during the national anthem was a profoundly unwise choice on his part, because it triggers in you, if you're watching this, the same thing it triggers in me: a disrespect for the country, a disrespect for the opportunities of the country, and is telegraphing the idea that whether he actually believes this or not, he thinks that America is just a racist hellhole. It's the worst place in the world, that we're filled with nothing but racists. And people who aren't racist, people like us, see this and we instantly set ourselves against it, because when you're disrespecting the flag, you're disrespecting all of us. It's an insult to me personally when Colin Kaepernick kneels during the national anthem. Now, the problem is, since he's chosen that method to protest, he's created in me an emotional reaction that is the precise opposite of the one that he should want to create. I'm not in favor of police brutality. I'm certainly not in favor of the state using excessive violence against individuals. I'm deeply opposed to these things. But he chose the wrong venue. And I know this to be true, and I know that a great deal of it is emotional, because we just had the experience a couple of hours ago when Scott said that Brittany Griner was not coming out for the national anthem. My immediate response was, okay, well, if you hate America so much, why don't you go live somewhere else? If you think this is such a rotten racist hellhole, why don't you go live somewhere else? Then we find out, no, she says she loves the country, no disrespect for the flag, fathers as a policeman, and so on. So it is really important to disassociate these things. I'm not saying this from my point of view, because this is not my ox that's being gored here. if you believe in the Black Lives Matter movement to the degree that you believe that there is still excessive police brutality and that there is still racially motivated excesses that are not explainable by individual situations and so on, if you believe that the policeman should not have been kneeling on George Floyd's neck for 10 minutes, as all of us do, then if this is something that you are passionate about, you need to immediately divorce this from anything having to do with the national anthem or the flag. The reason the national anthem is important, and the reason that people like us get teared up at the national anthem, is because we are out in public with large groups of people who we don't know, and it is a way of saying, no matter good or bad, we're all in this together. This is our country together. And if we have problems to solve, we'll solve them together. When you disrespect that by taking a knee, you're telling me that you're not on my team. And that's telling me you're on the team that I should be opposed to. And this is why it's such a bad idea, especially in this polarized environment. Today, as a conservative, there are so many progressives that I just want to put my hands around their neck and just throttle them until they turn the deep blue that they really are on the inside. But if I go to a football game and we're standing for the national anthem, then it's no longer me wanting to kill this progressive guy next to me, because we're both sitting in the Gator side of the stadium. Everybody's standing, and the people I really want to strangle are those damn Florida State Seminoles on the other side of the stadium, many of whom are political conservatives. And it may sound flip, but it's not. It's deeply important. Standing for the national anthem shows that you can basically realign the Rubik's Cube of this guy I disagree with politically, but he's a Packers fan. I'm a Packers fan. There are the Bears. It shows us that the country is capable of disagreeing and being able to still function, and that we're all in this together, that ultimately we're all part of the same team. So my advice to Brittany or to anybody else who feels this way would be something actually very simple. I think this is extremely simple. I think it's extremely effective. If it were me giving you genuine from the heart advice that if you want to raise awareness of excessive use of state force, what I would do if it were me is I would go out there when the national anthem is played, I would stand there and I would proudly put my hand over my heart. And then the moment the national anthem is over, then I would take a knee. And then people like me would be able to say, okay, all right, so we're on the same team here. We're trying to solve the same problem. I have had so many arguments immediately change from combat to cooperation when somebody who I disagree with vehemently starts the conversation by saying, listen, I love this country. I think it's the greatest place in the world. And when somebody says that, it's like, okay, now this is somebody I can talk to. This is somebody I can work with. This is somebody who's on my team, and we're going to solve this problem as a team. And this is a gigantic mistake that is being made now. And a great deal of racial healing, a great deal of this rage and anger could be put away. And the final aspect to this, folks, is that if forget Colin Kaepernick, Brittany Griner decides to not show up for the national anthem, I'm going to take that not so much as support for the Black Lives Matter movement. I'm going to take that as anti-Americanism. And that's going to make me angry. And the other side of this argument is Brittany Griner is going to see my anger, and she's going to hear me protesting the whole idea of her not coming out for the national anthem. And she's going to assume that I'm doing that because I'm a racist, because I don't care about police brutality, because I don't think there's anything like black injustice or anything. She's going to attribute motives to my reaction to her initial protest form. She's going to paint me as something that I'm not. I've already painted her as something that she's not. Why don't we divorce these two issues? Why don't we get disrespect for the country and the flag out of the way? And if you really want to help this issue and really believe that it's important, if you stood for the national anthem, put your hand over your heart and showed real respect, and then made your sign of protest, millions of people who are reflexively enemies of yours would suddenly become your allies. And if you really believe that this is an important problem, then that should be enough for you to put your pride away and stop conflating two things that have nothing to do with each other. For Steve Green and Scott Ott, I'm Bill Whittle. These programs are made possible by a small number of people who pay for them so that large numbers of people can watch them. If you want to be one of those people, we'd love to have you over at BillWhittle.com. Just go over there and click on the big Become a Member button. For Steve and Scott, I'm Bill. We'll see you next week right here on Right Angle.